Hi, this is Leen at Liberty. Today we're going to look at shale well evolution over the last decade and compare that to a couple of pieces of garden hose I got here laid out in my backyard. Hydraulic fracturing has been around since 1947, and initially it was conducted in higher permeability sandstones, often with the single fracture treatment. Conventional or higher perm rock is still the target for fracking in much of the world outside the United States. Shales are the source rock, and the majority of hydrocarbons typically remain there over the millions of years of maturing of that source rock, creating a massive incentive to directly produce from shales. Shale's challenge is its extreme low permeability. Commercial success and production hinges on creating fracture intensity, or bringing the frac to the oil and gas molecule in the reservoir. In this video, I want to illustrate our industry's transition over the last decade to create that frac intensity in the best economic way by gradually changing horizontal well and staging design. What I want to illustrate in progress with horizontal wells through these 5 pieces of garden hose that I've laid out, and all these garden hoses are pre-perforated by me. Now the goal of these garden hoses, or the goal of shale, if I step back, the goal of shale well development is to create as much fracture complexity along that horizontal well as possible. It will be analogous to keeping the grass green along these pre-perforated garden hoses that I've laid out here if I would have put them on the grass and if I would look at them for a longer time. Because ultimately keeping the grass green everywhere is analogous to creating production from everywhere along that garden hose and away from it. Now, to illustrate the industry's progress, I've used 5 different pieces of garden hose. All of them scaled by about a factor of 12. Now this garden hose is about 1/2 inch in diameter, so that represents about a wellbore diameter of 6 inches. And every inch here along the garden hose represents about a foot of length of that section, just roughly. So start with the first garden hose. First garden hose represents early days of fracking, maybe even before the shale revolution.
Well design number 1 is also known as pump and pray, or Hail Mary, and was not uncommon in horizontal wells before the shale revolution. In this strategy, the whole lateral is treated at once. Even scaled to my garden hose, the interval to be treated is thousands of inches in length, and the job doesn't even cover the first 200 inches. There is no control of where fluid and proppant goes. Most of the proppant and fluid is probably, just like you see here, used to stimulate the heel of the well in a potentially massive frac. The rest of the lateral does most likely not contribute to production. Even today, we are paying a huge field development price for these wells, with unknown, possibly very large old fracs interfering with new child infill wells. This well is a very bad parent. Well design number 2 is a sliding sleeve design with external swell packers in an uncemented hole. This design was used in the early days of the shale revolution, especially in Williston and DJ basins. The main benefit of the approach was that the sleeve could be shifted with a ball during the frac job. This was good for service companies to keep their equipment busy during early development with mostly single well operations. The strategy uses relatively low rate 40 barrels per minute with gel into an open annulus. A main downside of the strategy is that there is no control of the location of fracture initiation. Also, it is tough to create multiple fractures, as lower propagation pressures during the frac are likely not high enough to initiate many other fracs. One frac every 500 feet is simply not enough to create a prolific shale well. Liberty got its start in Williston with well design number 3. The central realization was that more complexity is needed for shale well development. The focus of this strategy was to create complexity through higher rate slickwater jobs in a plug-and-perf well design. Higher rates and perforation clusters encourage control of initiation and create more fractures within a stage and along the well. Pumping slickwater at high rate is not the best design for the service company's equipment. It also took more time to complete and required more equipment. As a result, strategy number 3 was also somewhat more expensive than strategy number 2. The production improvement, however, significantly exceeded the cost increase, therefore minimizing the cost to lift the produced barrel of oil to the surface. Some operators further extended this approach with a higher rate and smaller stage length. Operators would also use more perforation clusters and fewer total perforations, resulting in what is called a limited entry design, where flow is redistributed along more clusters, creating higher perf cluster efficiencies, or a higher number of perf clusters that are ultimately connected to a prop fracture that can contribute to production. This resulted in more fracture complexity and better distribution of fracture lengths. This strategy delivered further production improvement, but while these improvements further minimized dollars per BO, this approach is also more expensive and takes more time to complete with a higher stage count. More recently, some operators, for example Liberty Resources in the Williston Basin, have tweaked this approach to create more fractures per lateral foot of wellbore. Well design number 5 features a higher rate per perforation, more clusters, but fewer perforations per cluster. This results in more extreme limited entry perforation friction pressures to improve cluster efficiency and better distribute frac fluid volume and proppant mass amongst perf clusters. Achieving these improved perf cluster efficiencies has helped to ease up on stage count. The associated well cost reductions did not result in lower productivity, and this latest well design therefore represents the last iteration toward more economic shale development. We are sure there are many more iterations to follow.
In conclusion, I personally believe that every completion engineer should design their own sprinkler system at home, at least once, to understand how to keep their lawn green over a long time and even over dry spells. Old well designs and shales did not always create the fracture complexity intensity that we need in shale wells. New well designs with extreme limited entry combine speed of operations with the need for fracture complexity in shale reservoirs. For more information, please visit us at libertyfrac.com. This is Leen at Liberty. Thank you for watching.